Let us begin here, at the river's edge. For centuries, this water has followed the same course. Its path seems inevitable, carved by gravity, geology, the weight of history. Villagers rely on its predictability. Maps enshrine its route. Fishermen memorize its currents. But what if the river dreams of another way? What if, beneath its placid surface, it yearns to rewrite its story? This is the illusion of certainty. We mistake the familiar for the fixed. We forget that even rivers in their quiet persistence reshape continents. To disrupt expectation is not rebellion, it is nature. Consider Hiroshi. Born in 1632 into a lineage of Kyoto potters, his hands were destined to craft tea bowls for samurai lords. These vessels were not mere objects, they were rituals. Symmetry was sacred, perfection was a covenant. But Hiroshi's soul chafed at symmetry. As a boy, he'd collect cracked river stones, marveling at their fractures. "Why," he whispered to the kiln's flames, "must beauty be flawless?" One autumn evening, Hiroshi knelt at his wheel, shaping another identical bowl. The clay was cold, resistant. His father's voice rang in his ears. "Tradition is the kiln that tempers us." But Hiroshi's hands trembled. He pressed too hard. The bowl collapsed. Enraged, his father struck the wheel. "You shame generations!" That night, Hiroshi wandered to the river. Moonlight fractured on the water, each shard a fleeting masterpiece. He cupped a handful of silt, coarse, irregular, alive. What if, he wondered, the flaw is the art? Weeks passed. Hiroshi's rebellion simmered. He began smuggling imperfect bowls into the kiln. Slight warps, uneven glazes. His father burned them. Then the incident. A feudal lord demanded a tea bowl worthy of the shogun. Hiroshi's father toiled for weeks, producing a piece of impossible precision. But as the lord lifted it, Hiroshi stepped forward and let it shatter. "Forgive me," he said, bowing low. "True beauty cannot be held." The lord's sword hissed from its sheath, but Hiroshi's father intervened. "My son is unwell." That night, Hiroshi smashed the kiln. With the kiln's rubble, Hiroshi built a new one, crude, open air. He gathered coarse clay, mixed it with ash, and crushed shells. For days, he sculpted a bowl so uneven, it tilted like a drunkard. The glaze pooled asymmetrically, mimicking the river's scars. When fired, the bowl emerged, alive. Its imperfections cast shadows that danced in candlelight. Critics scoffed, "A child's mud pie." But a Zen monk passing through knelt before it. "Wabi-sabi," he murmured. "The beauty of transience, of things as they are, not as we demand." Today, that bowl rests in a Kyoto museum. Visitors lean close, expecting a lesson in imperfection. Instead, they feel a quiet revolt. The river's lesson is this: certainty is a delusion. We are taught to fear deviation, to equate predictability with virtue. But what if Hiroshi's failure was his truest offering? In 18th century Europe, philosophers called this the courage to think for oneself. Kant wrote of enlightenment as emergence from self-imposed immaturity. But Hiroshi's bowl whispers a subtler truth. To think freely, one must first feel freely. Ask yourself, where have you mistaken what is for what must be? The career chosen to placate parents, the love dimmed to avoid discomfort, the art abandoned for practicality. Psychologist Carl Jung warned the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Yet Hiroshi's bowl, crooked, audacious, invites us to try. Tonight, as you drift, imagine your life as Hiroshi's river. Where does it bend against expectation? Where have you dammed its flow to please spectators? The 13th century poet Rumi wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop." Disappointment, then, is not a wound, it is the price of depth. Perhaps the river's greatest courage is this: it accepts that its path will flood fields, erase roads, drown old dreams. It understands that to carve a canyon, one must first abandon the shore. So, breathe. Let the current of should dissolve. There is no map, only the flow. And if you fear the cost, the villager's scorn, the future's glare, remember Hiroshi. His name means abundant. Not in wealth, but in audacity. His bowl outlived empires. Sleep now, let the river carry you. Tomorrow, you need not follow its course. You may reimagine the banks, the prison of predictability. Step into this theater of shadows. Here, the puppets dance to a score, written long before their strings were tied. Their movements are precise, their roles immutable. The hero, the fool, the lover. But what if one puppet dared to stumble? To twist its strings into knots? To refuse the choreography? This is the prison of predictability, the silent agreement to perform a script we never read. We call it tradition, duty, progress. But beneath the applause, the stage creaks with the weight of unasked questions. In 1894, Gustav Klimt stood at such a crossroads. Commissioned to paint the ceiling of Vienna's Great Hall, he was tasked with glorifying rationality, the triumph of light over darkness. But Klimt's brush betrayed him. Gold leaf bled into sensuous curves. Allegorical figures became lovers. Entangled in chaos, the patrons recoiled. "This is not art," they declared. "It is madness." Yet today, the Beethoven frieze is revered as a masterpiece, a reminder that the greatest rebellions begin not with a roar, but a whisper. What? If I choose another dance? Sociologist Emil Durkheim called this invisible script collective consciousness, the shared beliefs that bind society. Like marionette strings, they tug us toward roles: the dutiful child, the loyal employee, the model citizen. But Durkheim's contemporary Franz Kafka painted a darker portrait. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa awakens as a beetle, his body rebelling against the script of provider. His family disowns him, not out of cruelty, but fear. What if his transformation is contagious? We too fear contagion. The child who questions bedtime becomes a heretic. The employee who rejects overtime becomes a traitor. The artist who defies trends becomes a ghost. Klimt's rebellion was not impulsive. For years he painted classical murals, his genius confined by guild rules. But at night he sketched women with serpentine hair, their bodies adorned in mosaics of guilt and desire. His patrons called it pornography. Historians later named it the golden phase. Klimt's sin was not lust, it was honesty. He painted the subconscious, the unscripted self. In doing so, he exposed the lie of collective consciousness. The script is not sacred, it is fragile. Now, meet Lila, a 21st century echo of Klimt. A corporate lawyer by day, she secretly writes poetry about office parks and dying orchids. One night, she posts a verse online: "We file briefs in triplicate while our souls gather dust in the cloud." Her firm fires her. Reputation risk, they say. Lila's crime. She reminded them that the puppeteer is mortal, that the theater is made of paper. Predictability is a survival tactic. Early humans clung to ritual to ward off chaos. But modernity has weaponized this instinct. Algorithms now curate our desires, our politics, our loves. We scroll through life as if it were a pre-written feed. See? This is who you are. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls this the burnout society, not from overwork, but from the exhaustion of performing a self we no longer recognize. Yet liberation whispers in unlikely places. In 1929, Virginia Woolf wrote A Room of One's Own, arguing that creativity requires defiance of expectation. But Woolf's deeper insight was this: the most profound prisons are built of borrowed thoughts. Consider the Swedish Housewives' Rebellion of 1968. Thousands of women abandoned their chores, leaving cities in silent chaos. Their protest? Against the script of natural duty, the puppets had cut their strings. Klimt's defiance was met with fury. Critics accused him of corrupting art, but he continued, funding his work through private patrons, women who saw their desires mirrored in his gold. One such patron, Adele Bloch-Bauer, became his muse. Her portrait, once deemed grotesque, now shatters auction records, a testament to the power of unbelonging. So how do we begin to cut the strings? Not with grand gestures, but small refusals. In 1982, performance artist Tae-Ching Hsieh spent a year outdoors, never entering a building. No manifesto, no applause, just silent dissent against the script of productivity. And when asked why, he said, "I wanted to be a question mark." Tonight, as you drift, imagine your life as Klimt's unfinished canvas. What gold have you scraped away to please the crowd? What desires linger in the margins? The poet Mary Oliver once begged, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" The answer lies not in the script, but in the silence between its lines. Sleep now, let the puppets rest. Tomorrow you may dance, or refuse the music entirely. The choice at last is yours. The tyranny of the future self. There is a ghost aboard this ship. It does not haunt the hold or whisper in the rigging. It lives in the captain's mind, a specter named Tomorrow. We all carry this ghost. It murmurs promises, sacrifice, today, and I will reward you. It drafts contracts in bloodless ink, work now, live later, suffer now, rejoice later. But what if the ghost is a liar? What if the harbor it charts is a mirage? In 1843, philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote of the self as a relation that relates itself to itself. A riddle, yes, but one that cracks open the tyranny of the future. To live for tomorrow, he argued, is to split the soul. The present self becomes a debtor, the future self a merciless creditor. Yet the storm cares nothing for our ledgers. The waves do not negotiate. Meet Captain Elias Voss. In 1762, he embarked on a voyage to chart the Northwest Passage. His orders were clear: secure the route for future trade. But the ice had other plans. For months, Voss's crew begged him to turn back. Frostbite gnawed their fingers. Rations dwindled. Yet Voss fixated on his future self, the hero immortalized in history books. Press onward, he ordered. Glory waits. They perished, all of them, within sight of open water. Voss's final log. Entry: I have mortgaged my men to a ghost. The future self is a shapeshifter. To the young, it is a conqueror. To the middle-aged, a judge. To the old, a thief. Economist Thomas Schelling called this our divided self, the internal war between you now and you later. We chain our present to a stranger's whims, as if time were a bridge rather than a river. But what if the bridge collapses? Consider Lila, the lawyer who saved every penny for a retirement she never saw. Her story is not unique. In Kyoto, there exists a 17th century memento mori scroll painted by a monk named Ryokan. It depicts a man climbing a mountain of coins. Unaware that the summit is a cliff, the future self is a siren. Its song is always almost. Modernity worships this ghost. Productivity apps promise to optimize our hours. Retirement plans reduce life to a math problem. Even our dreams become spreadsheets. But the poet Mary Oliver rebelled. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Wildness defies optimization. It cannot be compounded or indexed. In 1984, performance artist Linda Montano tethered herself to a stranger for a year via an 8-foot rope. No reason, no goal, just a refusal. To let the future colonize the present. Critics called it madness. She called it living unbound. Yet the ghost persists. It thrives on fear. Neuroscientists confirm this. Our brains punish present joy to avoid hypothetical pain. We choose salad over cake to please a future self who may never exist. We stay in loveless jobs to fund a retirement that may never come. This is not discipline. It is preemptive grief. History's greatest rebellions were often acts of temporal defiance. In 1916, Dadaists performed nonsense poetry in Zurich cafes as World War I raged. No manifestos, no futures, just howls against the machine of progress. In 1975, Japanese novelist Yukio Mishima staged a failed coup, then committed seppuku. His final words: I die to protest a world that values tomorrow over today. Extreme? Perhaps. But they understood. To reclaim the present, one must vandalize the future. Even nature mocks our hubris. The octopus Cyanea lives only 2 years. It does not hoard or strategize. It becomes changing colors, solving puzzles, embracing ephemerality. When it dies, it leaves no legacy, only ripples. What if we dared to dissolve our contracts with the ghost, to spend our currency of hours on now? Lila's journal was found beside her car's steering wheel. The last entry: I saved my life for someone I'll never meet. Her words echo Kierkegaard. Life must be lived forward, but understood backward. The tragedy is not death, it is deferral. The captain's compass still spins. The storm still rages. But what if we drop the map? What if we let the ship drift? Tonight, as you drift, imagine your future self as a stranger. Would you trust them with your joy, your loves, your quiet mornings? The Zen master Senkan wrote, If you wish to see the truth, hold no opinion for or against. Release the ghost. Let the storm carry you. Sleep now. The future can keep its promises. You have this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this infinite now. The compass needle falls still. The ship at last is free. The liberation of letting go. To let go is not to lose. It is to molt, to shed the husk of who you were, to make room for who you might become. This snake knows the secret. What once protected you will one day suffocate you. Its skin, once armor, becomes a tomb. To survive, it must surrender its silhouette to the wind. But humans cling. We mistake our shells for souls. Our identities calcify, the job title, the relationship, the story of how things must be. Frida Kahlo understood this. After a streetcar accident shattered her spine, she painted her broken body, not as tragedy, but as a tree split by lightning, roots still gripping the earth. I am not sick, she wrote. I am broken, but I am happy to be alive. Liberation begins where certainty ends. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold lacquer. The flaw becomes the art. But what if we never broke at all? What if we chose to shatter ourselves? In 12th century Kyoto, the monk Ikkyu Sojun did just that. He abandoned his temple, burned his robes, and wandered as a mad poet. When criticized, he wrote, "The true Zen is a bonfire of the mind." His disciples followed him into the wilderness, seeking enlightenment. But Ikkyu laughed. Enlightenment is the first lie. Burn it too. We fear letting go because we conflate release with ruin. The parent believes love requires control. The artist confuses discipline with dogma. The lover mistakes possession for passion. But the philosopher Alan Watts offered a counter-argument. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. In 1968, biologist Lynn Margulis upended evolutionary theory by proposing symbiosis, life thriving through collaboration, not competition. Cells absorbed other cells not as conquest, but as merger, letting go of boundaries birthed complexity. What might we absorb when we release our armor? Frida's accident confined her to bed for months. Trapped in a plaster corset, she painted the broken column, her spine a shattered ionic pillar, nails driven into her flesh. Critics called it grotesque. But in Mexico City today, that painting draws crowds not for its pain, but its defiance. The column is broken, the nails do pierce, and yet the figure stands. Letting go is not resignation. It is the audacity to say, "This is what remains. Let it be enough." Modern psychology echoes this. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness revolution taught patients to release the need to fix their pain, to let thoughts flow like leaves down a river. But the ancients knew this truth. The Tao Te Ching warns, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." In 1977, artist Ana Mendieta embodied this. She pressed her nude body into wet earth, creating silhouettes she called earth body sculptures. Rain washed them away. Wind scattered her form. She let the land reclaim her. Yet society brands letting go as failure. Quitters, dropouts, sellouts. But what if quitting is the bravest act? In 2015, Japanese tech CEO Yoshihisa Hashimoto dissolved his billion-dollar company, stating, "Growth was a noose. I choose air." Investors raged. Employees wept. Hashimoto planted rice in Tohoku, his hands relearning the weight of mud. His memoir's title, Unbecoming. Attachment is a kind of greed, a hoarding of selves. The child you were, the partner you ceased to be, the future you clutch like a ticket. The Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh advised, "Smile to your fear, let it pass through you like a ghost through a wall." In 1924, magician Harry Houdini staged his most daring escape. He buried himself alive. 6 feet of soil pressed his chest. When rescued, he gasped, "The coffin is easy. The hardest prison is the mind." Tonight, as you drift, imagine your grip loosening. What would you release if forgiveness were guaranteed? If the world sighed yes instead of why, the poet Rilke wrote, perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses just waiting to see us act, beautiful and brave. What dragons have you mistaken for guards? Frida's final painting was a watermelon still life, vivid, pulpy, alive. Slice into the fruit, and you'll find no seeds of regret. She died days later. Her last diary entry: I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return. To let go is to trust the exit, to greet the unknown not as an abyss, but a horizon. Sleep now. Let the wind take what it will. Tomorrow you may wake lighter, or not. The snake does not mourn its shed skin. The river does not miss its banks. And you are the horizon, always receding, always becoming. The alchemy of becoming. Here, at the edge of the world, the tree does not apologize for its shape. It does not beg forgiveness from the rock that bends it or the wind that strips its leaves. It simply becomes feral, unkempt, alive. This is the alchemy of becoming, the transmutation of struggle into shape, of wounds into wisdom, of every no into a not yet. In 1883, Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "You must become who you are." But how? How do we forge a self from the shards of expectation, loss, and fear? The answer lies not in the fire, but in the crucible, the vessel that holds chaos long enough for it to coalesce into gold. Consider the story of Hypatia of Alexandria. Philosopher, mathematician, astronomer, she dared to teach in a world that demanded her silence. When zealots demanded she renounce reason, she met them with equations. When they lit her library ablaze, she salvaged scrolls from ashes. In 415 AD, they murdered her in the streets, but her students smuggled her writings into the desert, where they fueled rebellions of thought for centuries. Hypatia's crime: she refused to shrink her mind to fit the world's coffin. Her legacy: proof that even extinguished stars cast light long after death. Alchemy is not magic, it is patience, the willingness to sit with leaden days until they reveal their latent gold. In 1971, chemist James Lovelock proposed the Gaia theory: Earth as a self-regulating organism, transforming poison into balance. Volcanoes spew sulfur, algae devour carbon. Life thrives not despite chaos, but through it. What if we too are ecosystems? What if our fractures are forests in waiting? Modernity worships the pristine, the unblemished face, the flawless plan, the untouched wilderness. But the Japanese art of kintsugi teaches that brokenness is an invitation to artistry. In 1992, artist Kohei Nawa began coating shattered objects in translucent beads. Cracks became galaxies, flaws became topography. Perfection, he said, is the enemy of wonder. The alchemist's secret? There is no finish line. Becoming is a verb without tense. Take Vincent van Gogh. He sold one painting in his lifetime. Critics called his swirls hysterical. Yet he wrote to his brother Theo, "I am seeking, I am striving, I am in it with all my heart." His Starry Night now hangs in a museum, but its true home is the collective soul, a testament to the courage of unresolved becoming. We fear becoming because it demands surrender, to release the shore, to unclench the fist, to admit, as poet Rumi did, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. In 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts read Genesis from lunar orbit, a futile attempt to sanctify the unknown. But the moon, silent and cratered, needed no scripture. It simply was. To become is to embrace paradox. The tree is both prisoner and sculptor of the cliff. Hypatia was both martyr and catalyst. Van Gogh's madness was both prison and portal. In 1927, physicist Werner Heisenberg proved we cannot measure a particle's position and momentum simultaneously. The act of observation alters reality. What if identity works the same? To define yourself is to limit yourself. To become is to remain perpetually unobserved. Tonight, as you drift, imagine your life as Van Gogh's brushstroke, a single arcing yellow in a midnight sky. Insignificant, perhaps, but remove it, and the universe dims. The Sufi poet Hafez wrote, "You are a soul made to swim in vast oceans, yet you cling to puddles, fearful of tides. What tides have you refused? What oceans wait beyond your puddle's edge?" Hypatia's students buried her scrolls in clay jars. For 1,600 years, the desert guarded them. When archaeologists unearthed the texts, the ink had fused with sand, creating new equations, unintended, breathtaking. Even in oblivion she became. What might you create if you trusted time's alchemy? Sleep now. Let the storm reshape you. Tomorrow you may wake as the cliff, the tree, or the gold hidden in the rock. The alchemist's work is never done. But then, neither is the universe's.